Your brain runs an incredibly complex piece of software just to recognize a friend. You track micro-expressions, predict emotional reactions, and build detailed mental models of the people you care about, simply to navigate the world. But that software has a leak. Right now, you are running it on a ghost. You are in a relationship with someone who does not know you exist. We call them parasocial bonds. For decades, they have been dismissed as a modern digital pathology, a trick played on a lonely brain by a glowing screen. But the brain is not being tricked at all. By the end of this video, you will see exactly what your social hardware is doing when you look at a screen and why the sudden loss of a one-way friend registers in the body as a real measurable loss. To understand the leak, we have to go back to the moment someone first noticed the water on the floor, 1956. Television is invading the American living room, and two sociologists, Donald Horton and R. Richard Wohl, notice something strange happening in the dark. Audiences are not just watching broadcast personalities, they are interacting with them. Speaking back to the glass, Horton and Wohl realized that broadcast performers were deliberately cultivating what they called intimacy at a distance. The hook was predictability. Groucho is always sharp. Godfrey is always warm-hearted. The audience learns their rhythms and their emotional tells, mapping them into memory with the exact same cognitive pathways they use for a physical neighbor. But here is where the history gets flattened. 70 years of retellings have warped Horton and Wohl's discovery into a simple, one-sided warning about modern isolation. The founders themselves were remarkably clear, and their actual position held two realities at once. They explicitly wrote that for the great majority of the audience, this one-way intimacy was a healthy complement to normal social life, not a replacement for it. The audience's role was simply to keep his sponsor informed of the esteem in which he is held. But they were equally precise about where the boundary lay. Only when the one-way relationship becomes a substitute for real social participation, proceeding in what they called absolute defiance of objective reality, does it cross into pathology, and their footnotes preserved the extremes. Morning show host Dave Garroway described a fan who registered at a hotel as his wife and told the desk clerk she was moving in. We named the phenomenon 70 years ago, and we knew from the start that it was a compliment for most and a substitute for a few. But observing a behavior in a 1950s living room is very different from understanding its mechanics. What is physically happening in the brain when we engage in a friendship that only goes one way? There is a popular, almost comforting myth that circulates whenever parasocial relationships are discussed. You have probably heard it. It is the claim that the human brain simply cannot emotionally distinguish between a screen and reality, that because our ancestors did not evolve with high-definition video, our visual cortex is easily fooled into treating a YouTuber or a celebrity exactly like a physical friend. It is a great story. But look at the actual data, and the brain is not fooled in the slightest. In 2021, a team of researchers put fans of a television series into a functional MRI scanner and had them think about themselves, their real friends, and the show's fictional characters. In the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, a clear ordering emerged. The self produced the strongest response, then real friends, and at the bottom, the fictional characters. And if you look at the electrical timing of the brain, the distinction is even sharper. In 2023, a study published in Brain Sciences used 64-channel EEG to measure the exact millisecond the brain registers a name. They tested participants who reported feeling deeply, subjectively close to both their real friends and their favorite influencers. But the brain did not care what the participants claimed to feel. Around 300 milliseconds after seeing a name, the electrical potentials for real friends spiked into distinctly stronger, highly differentiated patterns. The influencers and celebrities? Their neural signatures patterned statistically closer to complete strangers. The researchers titled their paper, quite literally, "Brain Activities Show There Is Nothing Like a Real Friend." You are not being tricked. Your brain knows exactly who is real and who is a ghost. But the truth of what is actually happening is far more fascinating than a simple optical illusion. When you look at a screen, your brain is not misfiring. It is simply deploying its exact, ordinary social cognitive machinery to mediated people at a measurable partial fidelity. It is running the exact same friendship software, the same facial recognition, the same theory of mind processing, the same emotional mapping. It just runs it at a lower resolution. It is an application of the same everyday machinery used in real relationships, applied to a one-way mirror. You learn their voice. You learn their cadence. You anticipate their reactions to news. The cognitive investment is real, even if the neural volume is turned down. But if this is just our baseline social cognition operating exactly as it ordinarily does, why do we treat it like a disease? The answer changes how we read the entire internet, because the people who rely on this software the most are not who you think they are. There is a caricature that haunts the modern internet. It is the stereotype of the lonely basement dweller, the socially deficient viewer, who, failing to secure real human connection, retreats into the warm, unchallenging embrace of a parasocial world. The assumption is zero-sum. Every hour you spend bonded to a screen is an hour stolen from a real relationship. But in 2020, researchers published a massive meta-analysis in the Journal of Communication, synthesizing 4 decades of research across 120 separate studies. They wanted to finally pin down the relationship between social deficiency and parasocial bonding. The aggregate stereotype completely failed. Across the board, looking at tens of thousands of participants, there was no significant aggregate link between social deficiency, loneliness, and the strength of a parasocial relationship. The people who form strong one-way bonds are not, on average, any lonelier or more socially inept than anyone else. In fact, the force that predicts a parasocial bond is the exact same force that predicts a real friendship: perceived similarity, what the literature calls homophily, the sense that this person is fundamentally like you. And when we look at specific psychological profiles, the stereotype breaks down even further. If parasocial bonds were purely a retreat for the socially withdrawn, you would expect highly avoidant people to rely on them the most. But research shows the exact opposite. In a study of YouTube viewers, individuals with high avoidant attachment actually formed significantly weaker parasocial bonds. The people who avoid real relationships tend to avoid mediated ones too. The data does not debunk the loneliness connection so much as it sharpens it, because while the stereotype fails in aggregate, the exception is real, and it is highly specific. Parasocial bonds are not a universal symptom of isolation, but they are a highly effective, targeted compensatory tool. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, a content analysis of nearly 1,500 Stay Home With Me videos documented creators supplying friend-like, mentor-like, and family-like social provisions to viewers barricaded out of the physical world. And people navigating high attachment anxiety, those who crave closeness but fear rejection, lean on mediated friends for an obvious reason. A one-way friend will never cancel, never judge, and never leave. Horton and Wohl saw this dual reality perfectly in 1956. For the vast majority, it is a normal complement to a healthy life. But for specific populations navigating sudden isolation or relational anxiety, the screen provides a very real, compensatory anchor. But a one-way anchor is still made of glass, and if these bonds are real applications of our social hardware, what happens when the glass shatters? In 2004, the sitcom Friends aired its series finale. For 10 years, millions of viewers had spent their Thursday nights in the exact same Manhattan apartment, tracking the emotional lives of 6 people who did not exist. Stop and consider the sheer processing power in that sentence. Millions of brains, each running a full social simulation of 6 phantoms, every Thursday night, for a decade. Psychologists saw an unprecedented opportunity. In the weeks after the finale, they surveyed hundreds of viewers, measuring their distress at the loss. The results were staggering. How much the breakup hurt was not primarily driven by how lonely a viewer was in real life. The single strongest predictor, ahead of loneliness itself, was simply the intensity of the parasocial bond they had formed. The grief registers as a real, measurable loss because the cognitive investment was real. And when the show ends, or when a creator logs off for the last time, all that quiet architecture is suddenly left with nowhere to go. Now, it is important to note that this is an emotional reality, not necessarily a behavioral one. Longitudinal studies on reality television viewers have shown that the distress of a parasocial breakup rarely changes a person's actual real-world behavior or self-efficacy. It hurts, but it does not break you. But the frontier of this phenomenon is shifting rapidly. We are no longer in Horton and Wohl's 1956 living room, watching a pre-recorded man in a suit. Neuroscientists have begun to isolate exactly what happens when the screen looks back. When researchers compare identical social interactions, one happening live, and the exact same interaction played back as a recording, the brain reacts differently. The live interaction produces significantly greater activation in reward and social cognition regions. Even live facial expressions drive stronger motor mimicry in the viewer's own face than pre-recorded ones do. And when neuroscientists use hyperscanning, putting 2 people in fMRI machines simultaneously, they find that live, mutual eye contact produces distinct interbrain synchronization that simply does not happen when watching a delayed replay. Liveness itself, the sheer behavioral contingency of knowing someone is there with you in real time, is a neural ingredient. And that is the modern frontier: live streams, direct-to-camera addresses, and now AI companions that remember your name and respond to your specific anxieties in real time. In a series of randomized experiments, talking with an AI companion reduced loneliness about as well as talking with a real person. And the mechanism was the same thing that predicts satisfaction in human relationships: the feeling of being genuinely heard. The underlying mechanism has not changed. It is still the lower resolution friendship software. It is still intimacy at a distance. The only difference is that the ghost in the machine is getting better at haunting us. When we look at the architecture of a parasocial bond, the temptation is to view it as a failure, a glitch in the human system, a story about people foolish enough to pour their time and emotional energy into a void that cannot love them back. But that is the wrong lens. The real mystery was never why we are easily tricked by screens. The brain isn't tricked at all. It knows exactly what it is doing, reliably differentiating the people we can touch from the people we can only watch. The real mystery is the sheer staggering scale of human empathy. Our capacity for connection is so vast, so deeply ingrained in our biological hardware, that it refuses to be contained by a two-way street. It is not a deficit. It is an overflow. The human drive to understand another mind, to map a personality, to find comfort in a familiar voice, is so powerful that it spills over the edges of our real lives. It reaches out into the dark, perfectly content to light up the void. Post-payoff seam. We built Everywhy to map the invisible architecture of the mind, one system at a time. If you want to understand the machinery running quietly in the background of your life, join us. End.